Coming up on KPBS Evening Edition, Southern California Edison says it will seek permission to restart the San Onofre nuclear power plant in June. And the aftermath of the suicide of football great Junior Seau. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dwayne Brown. Southern California Edison plans to ask federal regulators if it can restart the San Onofre nuclear power plant at a reduced capacity in June. But first, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission requires a final conclusion on the cause of the problems with its steam generator tubes. KPBS senior Metro reporter Allison St. John joins me from our North County Bureau. Has Southern California Edison, Allison, concluded what the cause of the problems are at San Onofre?
Well, not yet, Dwayne, but the company is telling its investors that it would like to make a request to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission later this month to ask if it can at least power the plant up at half power sometime next month. They are saying that if it's at half power, it may put less pressure on those tubes that leaked, which, as you remember, it's why the plant shut down. Of course, if they could open up again, that would take some pressure off the network administrators who are trying to keep Southern California's lights on when the summer comes.
And what is the NRC saying about Edison's plan?
Well, the NRC is saying, of course, that they will not grant permission for Edison to start the plant again unless they have a root cause established. However, it might be a little politically sensitive to get to that root cause, because if, in fact, it turns out that it's the design of that new steam generator that was installed, then the question arises, how come Edison spent $700 million of taxpayer money on a system that wasn't properly vetted?
That's right. Didn't the NRC have jurisdiction over permitting the new design to be installed?
Yes, it does. And in fact, the NRC is now saying that it will go back and review its procedures for how it vets those designs. Edison told the NRC that that was an equivalent design to the one it was replacing. Turns out that it wasn't. So that is going to be very interesting to see where the NRC decides to tighten up its procedures in those cases.
KPBS senior Metro reporter Allison St. John. Overall spending is down, but the number of jobs up slightly in the San Diego County budget for the coming fiscal year in July. Public safety will get substantial increases, while capital improvements get big cuts in the nearly $5 billion budget. San Diego School District's Teachers of the Year are a former nurse, a former high school dropout, and a special needs instructor. Ellie Van Diver, Joey LaPetrie, and Patty Reed will be honored by the school board next week. Mexican voters will get their first chance this Sunday to watch the country's presidential candidates debate on national television. Problem is, they'll have to decide whether to watch that or a national soccer match. From our Fronteras desk, Jill Replogle is here. So what's this all about, Jill?
Well, Mexico's two major stations, TV Azteca and Televisa, have both said that they're going to broadcast the soccer match on their main channels. Now, they're still going to broadcast the debate, but on much smaller channels, and one of them, TV Azteca, is going to broadcast it on a channel that doesn't even get national coverage.
And why do you think these TV stations are opting not to televise the presidential debate?
Well, some people are saying that they're favoring the guy who's in the lead right now, who is Enrique Peña Nieto, and he's ahead by about 20 points in the polls, so he doesn't have a whole lot of impetus to debate the other candidates. Others say that it's a simple business decision. There's probably more people that want to watch soccer than want to watch the debate, unfortunately.
Well, I know there are Mexican voters living in the U.S. Will they be able to watch the debate?
They can. CNN in Spanish is going to be broadcasting the debate, and the National Electoral Commission is also going to be streaming it live on their website.
Fronteras desk reporter Jill Replogle. The county medical examiner says the leading cause of accidental death in San Diego is prescription drugs, primarily caused by people who overdose on pain medication. Now, federal authorities in San Diego say more people than ever before are getting rid of their unused prescriptions properly.
We see a larger portion of what I would say probably the over 50 crowd, people who typically probably have more medication in their house.
DEA agent Tom Lennox says the prescription drug takeback program is showing signs of success, and this is but a small example.
We brought in almost 9,200 pounds well over a ton more than we did the last event.
The DEA and its partners set up drop-off boxes for unused prescriptions at 35 locations in San Diego and 3 in Imperial County. He says when the program started in 2009, there were only 6 drop-off sites.
So I think that tells me right now that the San Diego community understands the dangers of prescription drugs and the need to get rid of them and have them properly disposed of.
The program went national in 2010, and San Diego was the first to include Marine and Navy drop-off sites, as well as colleges and Indian reservations.
We had 3 different colleges and universities participating, and again, San Diego being what it is, we have tribal police.
Over the past decade, prescription drug-related death has increased 85%. Agent Lennox says you don't have to wait for the DEA's next event in October to get rid of your unused drugs.
Obviously, we do these every 6 months. If somebody has prescription drugs they haven't been able to get to a take-back program, currently the San Diego Sheriff's Department, they have drop boxes in all of their 24 locations.
Agent Lennox says all of the drugs turned in last weekend will be taken to a special facility and burned. The local environmental group San Diego 350 is responding to an international call to action on climate change. The group will form a human wave tomorrow morning in Mission Beach to call attention to rising sea levels. Dr. Raul Trejo will receive the San Diego Padres Hispanic Heritage Comunidad Award during tonight's game at Petco Park. Trejo will be honored for his effort to improve the lives of families as well as youth. He's on staff at the Scripps Family Medicine Residency Program and the San Isidro Health Center. The game starts at 7:05.
Tonight on KPBS. At 8, PBS's longest-running public affairs series, featuring Washington's top journalists analyzing the week's news and its effect on Americans. Washington Week. Then at 8:30 on Need to Know, broadcast media and the web unite with audience input for a compelling look at what's making news. And at 9, largely shrouded in secrecy and laden with risk, a look at global high finance on Frontline. That's tonight on KPBS.
The American people
have named PBS
the most trusted source of news
and public affairs
for the 8th year
in a row.
Trust.
The American people have spoken.
Thank you.
I'm Ray Suarez. On the next News Hour, new jobless numbers, plus Mark Shields and David Brooks. That's Friday on the PBS News Hour.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Irwin Jacobs and by
Two big stories in the news this week: the suicide of former Chargers linebacker Junior Seau and revelations of a UC San Diego engineering student left in a DEA holding cell without food or water for 5 days. Amitha Sharma and her guests have analysis of both these stories at the Evening Edition Roundtable.
Junior Seau's family wants researchers to look at his brain to check if he suffered damage from injuries sustained during his 20 years in the NFL. Seau committed suicide this week. We'll talk about his legacy to the game and the community. And federal agents abandoned him in a windowless jail cell without food or water for 5 days. Now, UC San Diego engineering student Daniel Chong is suing the federal government. My guests today are North County Times columnist Jay Paris and UT San Diego reporter Jeff McDonald. Jay, you knew Junior Seau. What was he like as a player? What was he like as a person? And what kind of mark does he leave on San Diego?
Well, I think he was really the same as a player and a person, and you would describe that with passion. And he played the game with incredible passion, and he really lived his life with that same passion. And the legacy he leaves is he was a Hall of Fame player and one of the best ever to play the game overall, and certainly one of the best Chargers. But almost a legacy, too, it was his connection to the fans, his connection to the community, the work he did in that community. More than $4 million in college scholarships to kids, throwing open his restaurant every Thanksgiving to feed the needy, shop with a jock where he would give kids $100 to shop for their families. So he was such a force on the field, but really that force was almost trumped off the field. And I think that's where the real loss is here, that people felt like they knew Junior Seau. He grew up in Oceanside. He went to school up the road at USC, and he was a star, a big star for their Chargers. And it's a loss that's going to be felt for quite some time.
People who saw him this week said that he was in great spirits Monday at a celebrity golf tournament. Tuesday, he canceled an afternoon shoot, saying that he wasn't feeling well. Wednesday, he takes his own life. Were there any signs, any indications that he was depressed about something?
We can't uncover any, and you look at the finances too, and there weren't people knocking on the door looking for money, and Junior was always the brightest personality in every room he walked into, and for him to cancel a photo shoot, I don't know what was going on there, but he had appointments later that day. His mom said, why wouldn't he say anything to her? And it seemed like it was almost I've heard it described as a permanent solution to a temporary problem, that you wonder what his state of mind is, and maybe that goes into playing 20 years in the NFL as well.
Well, so he plays 20 years in the NFL, which is unheard of. Mm-hmm. Now his family says that they want his brain studied for possible signs of traumatic brain encephalopathy, which is associated with depression, occasional suicide, even dementia. Right. Did he ever talk about this publicly? Did he ever show any signs of suffering from something like this?
Absolutely not. And Junior, part of what made him Junior Seau was his toughness and his machoism, and he would never raise a hand and say, I need to play off here, coach. I saw the guy play on one leg one time. No way he should have been playing. His knee was shot. He had more tackles than anybody out there. And I think too with the concussion, and that's the whole mentality and culture of the National Football League, is how tough can you be? Everybody gets hurt. Can you go through that pain? And I think when you combine that with the proud Samoan culture, which is a warrior mentality and a warrior culture, they don't raise their hand and say, I'm hurting here. And did Junior Seau have concussions during his career? Absolutely. I mean, he played in one of the most violent positions you could on the field and was making contact on every play. And of course, he suffered those concussions. He never let on them.
Well, let's talk about the game of football. It's just not your father's football game. It's become faster, harder, it's more rough. This week, 100 former NFL players joined other 1,500, I think, retired players in suing the NFL, saying that they're still experiencing debilitating effects from injuries they suffered to the brain on the field. How seriously is the NFL taking these concerns?
As serious as a $9 billion company would. And they're scared to death, because more and more of these players are coming back and saying, we didn't get the proper medical care. There wasn't an objective observer, a neurologist or somebody that could maybe look at it. It's hard to rely on the team trainer, the team doctor, to say, this guy can't play anymore. Everybody wants to win. And winning means money, and everybody wants that. So they're saying, as we go on, we didn't have that information. And you're right about the game. And a lot of it's the equipment. I mean, these light helmets, and they're using their helmets as a weapon, where in years past they didn't do that as much. And it's bigger, stronger size, and it's just the force of the velocity. The hits are becoming that much more violent. On the other end, that's what sells. That's why people tune in. That's why it's a $9 billion industry. So the NFL is in a real juggling act, but they are trying to put in rules to promote safety as much as they can.
We're going to switch gears now, Jeff. So there's this case of the UCSD engineering student Daniel Chong, who's left in a jail cell for 5 days without food or water. Let's take this case back a little bit. He was first picked up during a drug raid at a private home. What was he doing there?
By his own admission and the DEA, he was there to party with his friends on a Friday night, April 20th. He spent the night, and unbeknownst to him and certainly the other occupants of the house, the DEA had been observing the home for some time and had secured a search warrant, which they executed that Saturday. They grabbed up 9 people, including Mr. Chong, and took them to the DEA administration headquarters in Kearney Mesa. What happened next is not clear. The DEA has said that they went through the process of interviewing all 9 people, transferring folks from holding cells to interview rooms so they could be separately questioned independently, individually, I should say. They lost track of Mr. Chong at some point after the interview. They concluded his discussion and determined that he wasn't guilty of any crime, that they told him he would be released, and that just sit tight, we're going to let you go. In fact, Mr. Chong says that one agent said he'd even give him a ride home. This would have been Saturday afternoon sometime. Meantime, 7 of the people were transferred to county custody. 1 was released, and Mr. Chong was the one they forgot about. When he went back into the cell on the Saturday after the interview, he expected to go home within an hour or 2 hours, whatever, and he hung tight, and apparently he was handcuffed. The door never opened again until Wednesday afternoon.
So he's in this cell for 5 days. What did he endure, and what did he do to keep himself alive?
He told a very harrowing tale at his press conference on Tuesday. He expected to go home. He endured, he was hungry. He had no water. He had no place to go to the bathroom. He was handcuffed. When it became apparent that he wasn't going home anytime soon, he said mental fatigue set in. He started hallucinating from lack of food and water. At some point, he also could hear voices and footsteps outside the door, and he couldn't understand why no one was responding to his screams and his kicks. And he described basically going crazy and insane.
How was he eventually discovered?
That remains a mystery. He says he assumes it was accidental. Someone just walked in. He also said, however, that one of the agents said, "Here's the water you've been asking for," which I think is a very significant remembrance, because it implies that the agents knew he was in there. The DEA understandably hasn't responded to the specific points that Mr. Chong has brought forward. He subsequently filed a claim against the agency and will be going to court to recover damages. He was immediately transported to a local hospital where he spent 3 days in intensive care.
What kind of condition was he in?
Severely dehydrated, malnourished, and he reported having a perforated lung from having ingested glass from his eyeglasses in a ill-fated suicide attempt.
So the DEA has acknowledged that this has happened. They have apologized to him. Have they explained anything? Have they given any hint as to how something like this has happened? I mean, as far as we know, it hasn't happened before.
No, as far as we know, nothing like this has happened before. The only thing they've really acknowledged beyond the apology was that it was accidental. That was a key word in their statement to us on Monday, and we went with that. We've been pressing them for follow-up questions and responses to his side of the story, and none has been forthcoming. Perhaps understandably, in light of the $20 million claim his lawyer filed on Wednesday.
So his lawyer has sued. He's seeking $20 million. What is his lawyer saying about this case?
Well, they liken it to torture. They cite a number of examples of his condition that meet that statute. They recount in the 5-page claim the laws that dictate what the government can and can't do, and the violations that the government is alleged to have committed against Mr. Chong, and that will presumably be rejected by the DEA counsel and go to court sometime later this year, next year. He asked for an expedited rejection of the claim, which he expects.
And we'll close it there. Jeff, Jay, thank you for speaking to us today.
Thank you.
How does a restaurant's design impact your dining experience? When we come back, creating spaces we love to eat and drink in. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
The gun is his idea. I'm just,
My hostage!
Hostage, yes, that works. So what now? I'm going to jump in front of that bus. Having fun?
Wouldn't miss this for the world. The new season of Sherlock.
A new season of Sherlock premieres Sunday at 9 on KPBS television.
I love KPBS because when I wake up in the morning and that radio station goes on, 89.5 goes on, I know that I am going to get information that I can trust, that I can respect, that I can value, and I know I'm getting the truth.
Next time, Antiques Roadshow sets its sights on the treasures of the North Star State, Minnesota.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. I just can't even believe that.
Next time from Minneapolis on Antiques Roadshow.
Monday night at 8, only on KPBS television.
Today's foodie culture has everyone talking about food and where it comes from, but it's not just the food that makes the dining experience special, it's also the ambiance and the design of the restaurant. KPBS arts reporter Angela Carone talks to local designers about how they create the spaces we love to eat and drink in.
When the historic Lafayette Hotel on El Cajon Boulevard opened in 1946, Bob Hope was the first guest to check in. The stylish and the glamorous soon followed.
So they got a lot of really cool, really big celebrities at the time to come and stay here. And they had incredible jazz in the foyer, and they had good swimming pool parties, and it looked like a lot of fun. Yeah, it was the
place to be. The design team known as Bells and Whistles were inspired by that history when they agreed to design the new Imig's restaurant inside the Lafayette.
We realized that there was an incredible story that we could actually tie into our design, and that we could actually pay homage to that history of the place.
That sense of history is captured in this wall screen built out of windows and doors from the 1800s, all snagged at an estate sale in La Mesa. Bells and Whistles is a design trio, with Jason Lane rounding out the creative force behind the look of South Park's Smoking Goat restaurant and the Little Italy hotspot Starlight.
We wanted to create a place that felt timely but timeless. We wanted it to have a modernist edge, but we didn't want it to be too space-agey or use of too many bizarre, wild materials.
For Starlight, we definitely we had a lot of different inspirations. Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico. I think I had spent maybe 3 or 4 times going there and actually looking at that space. They did a lot of architecture underground, I think in the 1950s, 1960s, but it has this almost like Superman layer, and then they have these incredible stalactites that are coming down. They're lit, and so the chandelier at Starlight definitely is a reflection of that.
The Bells and Whistles designers actually build a lot of their designs themselves, which is rare in the design world.
You're not relying on someone else to kind of produce your idea.
And I think that we both feel that you can actually get a lot more soul into a project doing that.
At the new Raglan Public House in Ocean Beach, designer Michael Soriano has attempted to tap into the soul of a community.
OB presented its own unique challenges in terms of what the guest experience was supposed to represent, and it was more about anti-establishment. It was more about anti-design, anti-structure, anti-corporate.
Soriano immersed himself in Ocean Beach. He took note of all the visual hallmarks of the neighborhood, things like surf shop stickers and skateboards, graffiti and surfboards.
So we kind of looked at how everybody else, how they were integrating those into their properties, and how could we still kind of have a nod to those design elements, but reinvent them in our ways. The graffiti element we address by actually providing the guests with chalkboards, which also have, magnetic letters and whatnot. So it's good for the kids, but ironically enough, more adults actually use the chalkboards.
Soriano designed the fantastical interior of the Gaslamps Vin de Sera, as well as the mid-century-minded boutique hotel in Point Loma called the Pearl.
More often than not, I like to try to play on things that have to do with memory, childhood sensibilities, a sense of play, things that everybody can kind of relate to. And so design, specifically for me anyway, is about giving people those opportunities to kind of reconnect to those kind of good feelings and those good memories.
Today's design-savvy public expect a lot from their restaurants and bars.
The food and the drinks are obviously a huge part of it. Service is a huge part of it. But the space that you're actually sitting in is a huge draw. I think that's half the thrill ride.
Designing these spaces certainly seems like a glamorous gig, but these local design stars say it's hard work.
Every single thing that goes into the space is thought about with 4 or 5 different options, and it's mundane sometimes, you know, to think like, okay.
But it's glamorous. It is. I mean, look, yeah,
when the project is done,
yeah.
it's glamorous when it starts and when it finishes. And in between.
We get to imagine with our clients' money, and we get paid to do that.
Soriano says the payoff comes when he sees people in the spaces he's designed.
What inspires me is seeing people laugh, seeing people smile, and how can I just get more of that going on in the properties that I do. I mean, really, at the end of the day, I'd have to say it's my highest agenda.
KPBS arts reporter Angela Carone. You can read more about the work of the San Diego designers by going to Angela's Culture Lust blog at kpbs.org.
And now to our public square. Protesters took to the streets this week to get answers from federal investigators on the death of Anastasio Hernandez Rojas. Rojas, 42, died in June 2010 after Border Patrol agents caught him crossing into San Diego illegally. Authorities say they used a taser on him after he became violent. The county medical examiner ruled his death a homicide. The case has gained renewed attention after a video of the attack aired on a recent PBS documentary. It showed Rojas on the ground, lying almost still, while Border Patrol agents shouted at him to stop resisting. Many of you weighed in on the topic. Jorge Mariategui writes, quote, "I'm Mexican. I'm outraged. I'm outraged at both countries, Mexico for having no guts in making the U.S. responsible, and the U.S. for pretending nothing bad happened. It's a shame for both." Heather Colleen says, "This story is so disgusting. I'm angry and I want to cry at the same time." And Roberto Rolando Salinas had this to say: "It is reflective of the insensitivity and the repeated cover-up of law enforcement and the Justice Department. When a federal or local sworn officer is murdered, every resource and all the manpower needed is utilized to arrest and bring the accused to trial. Why has this investigation taken so long?" You can weigh in on the conversation by following us on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, and of course, you can email us. And now Dwayne has a recap of tonight's top stories.
Southern California Edison plans to ask federal regulators later this month if it can restart the San Onofre nuclear power plant in June. However, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission requires a final conclusion on the cause of the problems with its steam generators before the plant can go back online. Overall spending is down, but the number of jobs up slightly in the San Diego County budget for the coming fiscal year. Public safety sees substantial increases, while capital improvements get big cuts in the nearly $5 billion budget. You can watch and comment on any of the stories you saw tonight on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night. We leave you with a look at the weekend forecast.